In a time when survival was a daily struggle, where any weakness could mean death, a child with Down syndrome not only existed, but survived for years. And this survival wasn't passive. It meant someone was feeding the child, carrying them, protecting them, possibly loving them. The lead archaeologists were stunned. One of them, Dr. Antonio Rosas, later said that the child's survival showed a level of social cohesion and emotional investment in the group that we often underestimate in prehistoric humans. To understand this child's experience, we need to reconstruct the world they were born into. Neanderthals were not the brutish, grunting cavemen once imagined in textbooks. They buried their dead, used pigments, crafted tools, and possibly even created music. They lived in tight-knit family groups, often migrating with the seasons, surviving harsh climates with clever strategies and cooperation. For a child with Down syndrome, this world would have been filled with intense sensory input. Sharp winds, sudden noises, flickering firelight. They may have had trouble with motor coordination, speech, or even vision. Movement through rocky terrain could have been dangerous. Hunting or foraging, impossible. And yet, somehow, this child stayed alive. Why? It likely took a village, or at least a close family unit. Perhaps their mother carried them strapped to her hip while gathering roots. Maybe a sibling fed them mashed food by the fire. An elder might have kept them entertained with gestures, sounds, or stories. We can only imagine. What's striking is this: the child was not abandoned. No predator bones were found nearby, no signs of neglect. Instead, the body was intentionally placed in a burial context, which implies meaning, grief, or even love. This evidence shatters old myths of prehistoric cruelty. It tells us that Neanderthals had room in their hearts and in their survival strategies for compassion. What kind of strength does it take to protect someone who can't contribute in obvious ways? Anthropologists believe that empathy is not just a modern invention, it's a survival trait. In tightly bonded groups, looking out for one another increases the group's overall chance of success. A sick child today may become a strong ally later. But in this case, the child would likely never become a hunter or gatherer. So why care for them? Because maybe, just maybe, our ancient ancestors didn't always measure value in terms of usefulness. Maybe connection, familiarity, and affection were reason enough. This child's survival forces us to rethink the very definition of human. Perhaps it isn't intelligence or strength that defines us, but our ability to care for those who are weaker, even when it costs us. In fact, researchers now believe that these acts of compassion were not isolated. Across multiple prehistoric sites, from Iraq to France, skeletons have been found showing long-term disabilities, broken bones that healed, degenerative conditions, even signs of blindness or paralysis, all suggesting ongoing care. And if we believe that early humans were only ever cruel or calculating, we're missing a critical truth. They may have had fewer words, fewer tools, fewer comforts, but they still chose to care. And in doing so, they left us a legacy far richer than cave paintings or stone axes. They left behind the first evidence of empathy. Even without modern medicine, early humans were incredibly observant. They had to be. Survival depended on it. It's highly likely they could identify when a child wasn't developing normally. But recognizing difference doesn't automatically mean rejection. In fact, in tight-knit, interdependent communities, these differences may have been understood as part of the natural variety of life. Archaeological evidence even suggests that early humans noticed and responded to difference. Healed skull fractures, fused joints, and conditions like dwarfism or congenital malformations have been found in remains dating back tens of thousands of years, meaning these people were cared for, not discarded. So while prehistoric people didn't have a name for Down syndrome, they could absolutely see when a child required more attention, more care, more patience. And that's what makes these early cases so profound. Because without antibiotics, without physical therapy, without any of our modern tools, they still made a choice to nurture. Maybe they saw these children as spiritual, touched by something unseen. Or maybe they just saw them as theirs, as someone who belonged. Children with Down syndrome are often more vulnerable, especially in the first years of life. They can be born with congenital heart defects. Their immune systems may be weaker. Feeding can be difficult, and learning even basic motor skills takes time. In our modern world, survival often depends on hospitals, early interventions, and specialized care. So how did a prehistoric child with Down syndrome live long enough to leave behind bones? The answer isn't just biology, it's community. For a child born into a harsh Ice Age landscape, surviving a day is hard. Surviving years takes intention. That means regular feeding, warmth, protection from wild animals and accidents. It also likely means group members choosing to slow down their movements, adapt their routines, or redistribute labor, just to keep one vulnerable child safe.